Hello everyone, my name is Jenelle Newman, also known as Jelly Makes on Twitter and Instagram, and I am an illustrator, a part-time optician, and a sketchbook enthusiast. I'm here today to give you some tips and tricks to stay consistent, draw more often, and get more out of your sketchbook practice. First off, what is a sketchbook? To me, it is a tool for experimentation and growth, as well as a reflection of your own brain. It's unique to you, the creator and owner. Because it is a unique object for which everyone has their own process of filling, the advice I'm going to give is not a concrete list of rules. Instead, it is some guidelines that I have developed to help me when I get stuck, and I hope they'll help you as well. Let's begin. So you've opened up your sketchbook to a new page, ready to draw, and let all those ideas flow in effortless and creative beauty. And it's not happening. No ideas, no creativity, and it definitely doesn't feel effortless or beautiful. Don't give in and call it a day, though. What I do when this happens to me is I find a focus. This may sound crazy, but limiting yourself is actually a great way to boost your creativity. When you have no limits, things can get a bit messy. You add too much color, too many ideas, too much, and everything becomes disjointed. When you limit how you can draw, you're forcing yourself to experiment past your normal patterns in order to keep yourself engaged in the process. Rules I often use are things like painting the page a single color. It's kind of a brainless activity, but it gets your hands moving, and I usually get a few ideas about what I could do as I am painting. It's relaxing and no stress, and it breaks up the usual and repetitive white pages. Draw some boxes. Just fill a page up with boxes, panels, whatever you want to call them, and fill them in. Think about the layout, give yourself some variety in the sizes and shapes. I like to stick to something that resembles comic book panels, just so that I have the option to go that route if I would like, but it's also really fun to just fill them up with whatever. Start with a theme or build one as you go. It doesn't really matter, just fill in every box. Draw some blobs. This one is pure fun. Start simple, just draw some blobby circles and give them some character. It might seem pretty simple at the start, but you can really push the idea. Use the shapes to create some things you might not normally draw. If this is too simple, then push it further. Draw some character silhouettes and then fill in the details, fleshing out that character. Limit your color palette. This one is pretty self-explanatory with not much to expand on, but if you want a few tips, sketch out something you are comfortable with first, or simply swatch the colors you're using. Test out how they look next to each other, how they layer, and then jump into something a bit more challenging when you feel ready. Or just jump in and figure it out as you go. Anything is valid. Variations on an object. I always forget how much I really like doing this sort of thing, and it's a great tool to practice for any concept art kids out there. Find an object you're interested in, simple or complex, and then try to make new versions without copying or repeating previous ones. Once you feel comfortable with the exercises, move on from them. Make up new rules. The reason you build these limits is to break through them. Don't stick with them forever, push past them and create new things. Now that we've had fun creating things from pretty much nothing, let's talk about some studies. If you're really stuck or bored, studies are a great tool. It's another focus point, but instead there's no idea to come up with, just a reference to find, and your reference could be absolutely anything. It's not cheating to use a reference either. It's actually building up the relationship between your hands, eyes, and brain. Using that reference and seeing how something is constructed in real life will make it, and other objects, easier to draw from your imagination by expanding your visual library. And like I said, your reference could be anything. It doesn't really matter what it is, find something that interests you or is close at hand and draw it. And since we're talking about reference, let's talk about doing a master study. A master study, for anyone who doesn't know, is replicating a known work of art as close as you are able to. It's basically art forgery, but you're not trying to make a profit. And if you post it anywhere online, you should be letting people know who and what you are copying. Now, don't get me wrong, master studies are amazing tools, but we are talking about a sketchbook here, and master studies can be a little intense. But what about breaking down a masterwork? Instead of copying the whole piece, focus on one aspect of it and ignore the rest for now. Values, composition, color, whatever you want. Ideally, you could print it out, glue or tape it in your sketchbook, draw on top of it, and write notes next to it. Now, my printer isn't really working right now, and maybe yours isn't either, so drop an image into whatever digital art program of your choice and go wild. If that sounds like it's still too much with your current resources, then find a few images you like and be an active observer. Figure out what it is you like about them. Don't be passive about it. Really dig into the image and observe it. Is it the lighting, the color, the textures, the movement? Whatever it is, write it down. Knowing what it is that you like about another artist's work will help you make decisions about your own, as well as giving you more things to practice in your sketchbook. And yes, please write it down. You will forget, and finding a written breakdown in your sketchbook might save you from having a mental breakdown later. Speaking of mental breakdowns, if you are having one, have you considered that it might be a great time to change your media and experiment? I find that I fall into art block when I'm bored with my work, and when that happens, I don't open up my sketchbook. But I should. The best way that I have found to get rid of that art block is to do something unexpected. Sketchbooks are made for experiments. They are a safe space for you to try new things and feel no judgment. If you mess up, so what? It's a sketchbook. There's always another page, and you don't have to create a masterpiece on every single one. When you start to get bored, open up your sketchbook, grab some paint, ink, chalk, charcoal, whatever it is, and just go nuts. Make marks, mix colors, experiment. Zero judgment. Pages that you don't like in the moment might be some of your favorite pages in the future. Unlock the 2-year-old part of your brain that was a master finger painter and go wild. You're not limited by drawing media either. It's your sketchbook. You can stick whatever you want in there. Collage it, make a washi tape swatch page, smear some paint around, cut some pages. The possibilities are absolutely endless. It might be called a sketchbook, but it isn't limited to only sketching, and neither should you be. The only limits here are the ones you set yourself. Make a project. I think we all have projects in some form or another, and it is my belief that projects and sketchbooks have a symbiotic relationship. They both feed and support each other. When you build a project, it's going to need somewhere to grow for the ideas to take place, and what better place than inside a sketchbook? Meanwhile, for the sketchbook, you'll never run out of ideas to put in your sketchbook if you have a project you're working on. The best part is it doesn't matter what the project is, big or small, from album covers to graphic novels, you can always work on it in a sketchbook. Stuff like thumbnails or concept sketches, creature designs, character concepts, and short comics exploring their characters before you dive into the larger narrative work. It really doesn't matter. I throw all sorts of stuff for the projects I work on into my sketchbook. I love drawing my characters over and over and over again. Maybe too much. But your sketchbook doesn't care. It cannot judge. And remember how I said that there weren't any limits to what you can do inside a sketchbook? How about tricking yourself into doing final passes at art by saying, it's just in my sketchbook, so it's okay if I mess up. It really does work. But honestly, the most important thing that I could tell any of you today, no matter what you're working on, is to have fun. Your sketchbook is for you, and side note, so is any self-directed project. You should work to figure out how you work best. An oboe is not a piano, and they do not play music in the same way. You are not your peers, so you are going to work in your own way. Your work won't look like their work. And that's okay. Find your own way, own it, and use it. I hope you take whatever you have gleaned from this talk today and use it in your own sketchbook. To end, I'm going to show some more pages from my own sketchbooks. A few years ago, I hit this big rut. I wasn't sure what I was doing, and I wasn't happy working in my sketchbooks. So I took a break from what I thought a sketchbook should be, and I just started writing whatever came to mind in fat, chunky Crayola markers. And what follows are the most important pages I think I've ever created to this day. It started out fairly coherent, but as I wrote, I got more into the idea of the shapes the pen was making, the texture it had when I wrote, the patterns I could create, and then I lost it. But I loved it, so I kept going, and then I was done. I was laughing and I showed it to several friends and family members. None of them understood why I found it so hilarious, and honestly, neither do I. But there was something so freeing when I realized that I didn't have to follow the same patterns I always did. I didn't need to lead up to anything or plan anything. I could write bird in the middle of a page in the absolute center of the sketchbook. And I was okay because it was my sketchbook. I went back to my normal drawings after this, but after that point, I got a lot looser with my sketches. I experimented more. I put as much or as little time into the pages as I wanted. Some pages are simpler than others, but my guiding force with most of my sketchbook now is, am I having fun? Because honestly, the only true rule to a sketchbook is if you aren't having fun, you're doing it wrong. Turn your studies into fan art, draw the same face 50 times, fill a page full of scribbles, make art you enjoy. If you don't enjoy drawing every day in your sketchbook, then don't do it. But if you want to get better, remember that consistency is key. If you're working out to get stronger, once a month isn't going to cut it even if you work out super hard. But not everyone is a total gym rat either. Same goes for sketchbooks. Work in them often, try for at least once a week if you're working to build up a sketchbook habit. But don't feel bad if you're not doing multiple pages each and every day, and take a day or two off when you need to. This isn't a race. At the end of the day, your sketchbook is for you. You decide what you want to get out of it. No one can tell you if you're doing it wrong because it's yours. If you're happy, then that's all that matters. So get out there and fill up some sketchbooks. Thanks for listening.